Hej och varmt välkommen till stiftelsen Ekocentrum och våra öppna föreläsningar. Jag heter Mikaela Rosander och är verksamhetsledare för stiftelsen. De här filminspelningarna gjordes under hösten november-december 2021 som en del av Ekocentrums öppna föreläsningar. Och vi kunde göra de här inspelningarna med hjälp av stöd från Olof och Caroline Viks fond. I höst har temat vi arbetat med varit klimatfrågorna. Inte minst med tanke på att det är en stor konferens under hösten, en internationell konferens kring klimatfrågorna i Glasgow, kallad COP26. Och vi har velat lyfta olika infallsvinklar och aspekter på klimatfrågorna med de här föreläsningarna. För att visa bredden av frågan och komplexiteten. Än en gång, varmt välkommen till Ekocentrum.
Välkommen till den första av 2 klimatkvällar under hösten 2021. Vid detta tillfälle får vi ta del av ett samtal med Dr Bremley Lyngdoh från den blå zonen på COP26-mötet. Bremley Lyngdoh är grundare av NGO:n Worldview Impact Foundation och sitter också i en styrgrupp för fredsbevarande dialog i Initiatives of Change.
We're going to have an exciting evening discussing climate and climate change and the effect it has on us people and how we react to it, to the changes and to the debates and to all the scenarios that we are facing. And I'm going to give the floor to Marcus Göransson. Marcus, you will give an intro to the topic. Please take the floor.
Thank you. A few years ago, the new Sustainable Development Goals came out of the old ones, the Millennium Goals. And these are basically 17 goals to ensure that we will live in a sustainable future, more or less. And out of these 17, one of them is being sort of battled in Glasgow at the moment, and that's the 13th goal, climate action. And if you want to know more about this, I would suggest that you log on to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals site and look further into this. Climate change is due to that the greenhouse effect gets increased by human activities. And those human activities means, they are in fact the burning of fossil fuels. So without adding more fossil fuels being burned, then we wouldn't increase the greenhouse effect. And this can be scientifically measured, and it has been done so in the IPCC, the latest report on climate change. And as a matter of fact, there's a recent paper saying that close to 99% of all climate research shows that we have an anthropogenic climate change going on. And the organization monitoring this is IPCC. They assess already published research, and the latest report is not a comedy. Shows a lot of things, a lot of markers that shows us that we are on our way to the 1.5 degrees warming of the planet. And I think without further ado, I think it's time to carry on with the questions for Bremley. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we'll probably see you on the big screen here. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Bremley Lyngdoh to you. Dr. Bremley Lyngdoh, directly from Glasgow.
So, but maybe we should say that we ordinary people, we hear about this global conference through media, of course, and the news every day. But you are live there and have been there since the start of it, or how long have you attended the conference?
Yes, I arrived here on the 1st of November, so it's been more than 10 days. It will end on the 12th. And I hear Boris Johnson is here again, and they have come up with a draft statement or declaration, which is 7 pages long. and let's see if there's any beef in it when they release it in 2 days' time on the consensus agreement between all parties.
Can you just start by telling us a bit about your role? What's your role in the? Are you part of the negotiations in some way, or in what rooms can you enter?
There's a blue zone where we guys can go in, the accredited, and there's a green zone which is for anybody else that is not accredited that can go there on a daily basis, just get a ticket. It's open to all. Yes, we are called accredited NGOs or observers. So all NGOs have got this yellow observer pass. So I'm here with Initiatives of Change, and it's a Swiss-based international organization. And if you have a nonprofit, you can apply for accreditation as long as you work on the development agenda, on women, indigenous peoples, farmers group. Anyone can be an observer. And when you officially get accreditation from the UNFCCC in Bonn, you can actually come and observe. And sometimes you get a right to speak and intervene with delegations from different countries who have a red or pink badge. It's called party. So the party are the only people that can negotiate and talk because they are member states. We are observers, we can observe, and sometimes we are invited to speak and give inputs to the parties. But sometimes they don't allow us to go in when there's only a closed door negotiation. Sometimes they allow. So, and it's also on they have like a quota system. But there's so many other events happening apart from the negotiation. It's like an expose, because every organization, they bring their own projects, their own delegation. There are companies that showcase their technologies, whether it's solar, wind, hydro. There are NGOs that bring their contingent, whether it's farmers, indigenous people, they do protests, they do music, they do art, they do drama. It's an eclectic mix of people, like 30,000 people from 197 countries, including everyone from diplomats to politicians to religious leaders to activists to youth, all.
But just to clarify, is you're talking about the expo and the actual negotiations. So those two things are happening at different locations, right?
No, in the same blue zone. But there are some expos outside, but some of them are in the exhibition center inside the blue zone. So every country has got a pavilion. There's a European pavilion. Then other countries can have a Swedish pavilion, Denmark, Turkey, India, Pakistan. Each country try to drag people in. They showcase what they're doing on climate. They invite people and speakers. They have like a conference room, smaller one. So, and then companies have their own, and then indigenous people have their own pavilion. And then African countries have their own. Yeah, so it's a huge exhibition center with all countries, all NGOs, companies, associations showcasing their work. Apart from all the hot air negotiations at the governmental level, everybody else has their own little side events everywhere.
Speaking about negotiations, this is the 26th meeting, and if we sort of rewind back to the 21st meeting when the Paris Agreement was ratified.
Agreed upon. Yes.
Agreed upon. Yeah, sorry, that's the right word. So what makes the 26th meeting important? What has to be the outcome of this meeting?
Well, you know, they made many pledges in Paris, and they said the Paris COP was about making commitments and pledges. The Glasgow COP, the 26th COP, is about delivering on action on what has been committed, and it is about putting the rubber meets the road. And if this COP breaks, then the whole planet's break. Basically, if there is no consensus and no commitment to take action like yesterday, like now, then we have a broken planet and a broken system. That's what the UN Secretary General said. So it's been 25 years of climate negotiations since 2019, the last COP that was happened in Madrid. It was supposed to be in Chile, but there was political unrest in Chile, in Santiago. So the Spanish government hosted the COP in Madrid. And then that was 2019. I was COP 25. And then COVID happened. So they canceled the COP last year in Glasgow. So now the COP 26, first time in the history of UN negotiations, has been postponed it by a year because of COVID-19. So can you imagine? We've been talking for 25 years, and then one little virus comes and shuts the planet down for like months, and it dips the global emissions by 10% because there was no trade, no plane, no ship, no industry running. They've been talking for 25 years and it never dipped. And one little virus comes and it made the whole planet shut, and it dipped by 10%. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I'm just saying, like, you know, the global lockdown made global emissions go down by 10%, but now they're going up again. So you would need a lot of lockdowns to lower the emissions at a global scale.
But what would you say about, you've been there since the 1st of November. So those 10 days, what kind of progress can you see so far?
Well, you know, in the first 2 days, on the 1st and the 2nd, it was a summit. So a lot of presidents and prime ministers came here, heads of states of government. They all gave their blah-de-blah. They spoke a lot. They made their pledges. Like my prime minister from India was here, including Biden, and, you know, Boris Johnson opened the show. And Modi promised or said that he would guide India to be net zero by 2070, so 20 years later. But also committed other things that would happen to go renewables, to switch to renewables by 2030, 40, and timelines. But again, politicians like to make these pledges. They will not be around in like 30, 20 years from now. But, you know, at the end of the day, if those commitments are not honored when they go back home, and if we, the civil society, that are not holding them accountable for what they made promises here, then it's just hot air, because these are all voluntary commitments, and it's up to every country and every government to stand by it. So who's going to police India or China or Russia of what they have committed here, unless the citizens of those countries hold the governments they've elected accountable?
So far it's been a lot of talk and not so much written yet, I guess.
Yeah.
It's coming the last days.
Well, they made a commitment, 100 countries made a commitment to end deforestation by 2030. And some countries, another 100 countries also promised to switch to renewables by 2040 and all change their transition to clean fuel. And also a group of countries committed to divorce coal, so no more coal at all, except for Australia and Poland and all these heavy coal exporting countries. They have not committed, but a lot of other smaller countries and developing countries have committed to do away with coal. But obviously the big producers of coal, the exporters of coal, have not made that commitment yet. So again, it's country to country.
What do you think about your country's commitment? I mean, 2070, it's much too late, isn't it?
I know. It's like, what is that? But it's a political statement made by the leader of a huge country. And even if he achieves, you know, halfway of that, if he starts now, a lot would be achieved in a population of 1.5 billion. Even if Modi or India was able to achieve the SDGs, because of the size of India, 50% of the sustainable development goals would be achieved if India is able to achieve them by 2030, because of the size and the population and the ecosystems it has. China wasn't here, Russia wasn't here, which was interesting. Xi Jinping didn't come and Putin didn't come, and these are the two major players that did not show up. So again, no country can do this alone. If China doesn't care, this whole deal will fall apart. Of course, Russia is not such a big polluter anymore. China is number one, and the United States, and then the European Union, and then India is number 4. But still, they export a lot of gas, and they still are exporting a lot of pollution.
But isn't also your country, India, is expressing the tension between North and South, and the money that was promised, the 100 billion US dollars.
US dollars, yes.
Yes. Has not yet been seen, but is supposed to come in 2023. So I'm guessing that was kind of that showcased the tension between that really this hasn't happened yet.
Yes, that's very contentious. All the developing countries here are accusing the rich countries of making a commitment but not delivering, because this was committed since Paris, 100 billion, but not much has trickled in, especially for adaptation. A lot of countries are putting money on mitigation because they can get the investments from, wind and solar and turbine and carbon capture and storage, blah, blah, blah. They can spend billions there. But when it comes to adaptation, because it's more for little people and poor people in the developing countries to adapt, whether they're planting trees or they are building dikes or they are, building their homes in higher levels, it's not much to gain money from. So it's not much an adaptation, not many projects, but a lot has been put in to mitigation.
So would you say that there's a clear conflict between Sustainable Development Goal 8 and 13 then? I'm talking about economical growth and climate change.
Yeah, but it depends. It depends what economic growth is it, because if you look at just GDP, my professor at Columbia, Joseph Stiglitz, said the way countries measure growth is completely wrong, economic growth. But if you look at the examples of Bhutan, where the gross national happiness index, well-being of the citizens, like in Bhutan, now New Zealand is doing it, and also Finland, it's a completely different measurement. It's not just about exponential growth and economic and consumption. It's more about asking your citizens, how happy are you? What is well-being? What is wellness? Are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you eating well? And all that. So it's not just about exponential drilling and extraction, and also including natural capital accounting and human capital and so on. So if that kind of economic growth is a green one with a green pathway that includes this wellness and well-being of the citizens, then it would not conflict. But if we go in the same trajectory of extracting and not giving back and polluting, then obviously it's in direct conflict with the climate goals. So everybody's talking about the green, the green post-COVID green recovery. What is this green recovery all about? That's what they meant. It's not. It has. When you recover green, it means you have to switch into a green economic pathway, not the same way. And unless and until they do that, then it will be a direct conflict, obviously.
Yes, and that's also different between different countries. For example, I read that France, they try to minimize domestic flights shorter than a certain distance, while the other day Great Britain was criticized because they are actually giving subsidies to domestic. They want to get the meeting started again by promoting domestic flights. So different countries are choosing different paths. In France, they try to start up from the pandemic situation through trying to get people to choose trains instead. And my reaction to Great Britain's move is that they are going the opposite direction.
Exactly. We took the train from London to come here. The train was like 150 pounds or more, and the plane was just like 50. So the train was 3 times more expensive than the plane. Is like, oh my God, why are you guys making the plane so cheap? Why not encourage people to take the train when it's much more less carbon, especially for people coming from London? It's really weird. But then there was like a big tornado that brought all the trees down, and the electric pole collapsed, and it blocked the train, and all the people that were supposed to take the train took the plane. So you can see the impact of climate change already happening here, like big tropical storms and knocking trees down, blocking straight, whatever. But I still think that the price of the train ticket is exorbitant in this country. And how can you encourage people to be carbon neutral and reduce the emissions when you jack up the price 3 times more to go by train than by plane? It really doesn't make sense. It's like they're subsidizing the planes and then making the people pay 3 times more to go by train. It doesn't make any sense.
You've been doing this for quite a while now, for 20 good years, attending these COP meetings. To sort of bring up another question here, what's your motivation for this? What's driving you?
Well, like this time we met we met with 60 organizations from around the world that are planting trees, that are restoring ecosystems. But we got out of the COP, we went into the forest, into Loch Lomond, and it was really incredible. We all were with the trees, and we suddenly realized that all of us combined planted or were growing and restoring 50 million trees a year annually. So I said, we must all work together because we are all restoring ecosystems. So I said, maybe we should make a commitment to double from 250 million to 500 million in the spirit of collaboration and co-creation instead of competing. So that was really amazing. And we also made a commitment that by 2030, we would reach a 1 billion tree target per year and help each other to cross-pollinate funding for all these 60 organizations working in all over the world restoring ecosystems. So it was quite amazing to meet all these people in one place. And they said they would all combine resources to double the efforts of restoring all ecosystems on the planet, which was great, rather than competing with each other for funding.
So that inspires you and keeps you going, the meetings with different people around the world.
Yeah, it's quite different to at least see them in the eye and hold hands and walk barefoot in the forest and make a commitment looking at each other face to face. We would never be able to do that on Zoom probably because we can't read their emotions, we can't see their stress. And yeah, it was quite interesting.
Is it possible to have a question here from me? Is that?
Yes, go for it.
I just wondered, we hear you talk about democratization and the blue zone and the green zone and a lot of blah, blah, blah. How does the demonstration outside in the streets, the 100,000 people or more that walk the streets, affect the mood and the literal negotiations inside in the blue zone? Is it, do you hear a bit? Of course you hear about it, but does it affect it?
Yeah, actually there's a lot of young people also inside the blue zone with these passes demonstrating. So they've organized themselves pretty well, even in the blue zone. And some of them were thrown out, but hey, they actually made some impact because without that, nobody cares. So it's good to have resistance outside, also inside, well organized and synchronized. And even countries can demonstrate among themselves, you know, but within the parties, they also accredit young people with a party badge. And those young people, they might come on government delegations, but they also have the right to speak because they came with their governments, whether they're happy or not. And they have the right to also demonstrate, but not like break things and all that. But everyone has a right to demonstrate, even inside the blue zone, with permission, in solidarity with the people outside. Yeah, so it does have an effect, but you have to organize properly.
So another question regarding conflicts with other Agenda 2030 goals. We've been discussing quite a lot in Sweden, for instance, a risk of climate action degrading biodiversity. So many times the conventional agriculture would say that it's more climate efficient. So we could see direct conflicts or risks of conflicts with other goals, both in, for example, in forestry and how you use timber and how you take out timber, and even planting. I was working in Asia and we could see a lot of big companies planting hectares and hectares of a single tree species where they had before they had natural forest. And in calculations, they could show that this would increase the absorption of carbon dioxide, while they would not look at the other issues such as biodiversity, poverty and livelihoods dependent on natural forests and animal aspects. Do you see a risk in that? Is that really being discussed properly, or is the focus quite narrow on climate only?
All the people that I met that were working on restoring of ecosystems, they want to make sure that it's nature-based solutions, not crazy plantations with palm oil and stuff that is monocrop, that is actually destroying and replacing natural forest growth and natural organic farming with the chemical pesticides and fertilizers. So there's a big push for nature-based solutions right now here, but also a big push for oceans to be on the agenda, because the COP in Madrid was supposed to put the ocean agenda in, but they missed it. So now there's been a big talk about the ocean also in the climate debate, water as a whole, because climate is all about the hydrological cycle of the planet and water beyond carbon. So, and a lot of young people are also pushing, everyone is talking about NBS, and not just planting trees, but actually growing trees, protecting them with native grown species in a diverse ecosystem with biodiversity returns, and maintaining the cultural integrity of the land and the people that maintain them. So that was very important. And also to protect these red list species of IUCN that are endangered, like trees and herbs and plants, to protect them. But not just trees, but also the flora and the fauna, and to add like this new global standard that's being adopted by IUCN that's called the nature-based solutions, which is going way beyond carbon-centric, but looking at a holistic approach of ecosystem services and nature as a whole. Every pavilion I go, everyone is talking about nature-based solutions, which is good, but now they have to agree and not make projects just carbon-centric, but look at entire ecosystem from a whole systems approach, not like silo approach of one size fit all or monocropping stuff just to feed the industry, palm oil industry or something like that. Yeah. And a lot of talk on regenerative farming to restore the soils with native natural style, zero till farming or zero fertilizer, because it's more efficient, and it also makes the soil to sequester carbon again if there are no chemicals and no pesticides. So that will draw down a lot more carbon. And there's a big talk today, this French program called 4/1000, big push for all farmers to go regenerative or natural or organic again, to draw down 30 gigaton of carbon every year from soil, apart from forests. Yeah.
Interesting, thank you.
Yeah, we're soon going to listen to a climate psychology researcher, and the final question would probably be to ask you are people transparent in how they feel? Do you think can you see that in the blue zone, if people are truly transparent with their emotions about climate change?
The good thing is that there's a lot of young people that are very smart, so no one can lie. It's amazing. We didn't have this technology before, Right now, everyone is updating each one. They're following, they're tweeting. So it's very hard for one government to lie, and they are already all the youth are demonstrating there, and all the guys are like embarrassed. So you can't lie anymore. Even companies can't lie, because all that, whatever they put in the product will be exposed, because the kids now, if they use social media and all the tech in a good way, they can really bring companies down and make them bankrupt by boycotting or something. They are so smart in doing this media campaigns and so on. They look like Greta. But if that energy was channeled into targeting the big oil and all the stuff in a very clever way, they can bring them to their knees. And so will they bring the politicians also to their knees, because they hold the voting power with them. But I fear that all these youth can also be easily targeted to be exploited and used by companies in a negative way. So I was saying that if all the Greta generation people, 100,000 of them marching in the streets, if we can harvest their power and their energy and put 100,000 trees as a demonstration. I hate listening to people in the COP, but we have planted 100,000 trees, representing 100,000 people in the streets of Glasgow to rewild the Highlands of Scotland, and those 100,000 trees will draw down 100,000 tons. Now that's powerful, that's action. Apart from just shouting and demonstrating in the streets, you've also taken action by restoring an entire ecosystem in the Highlands of Scotland. So this has to be done more, where you can shame your policymakers and politicians by taking local action, because that doesn't require too much money. Anyone can do it. Change of mindset, change of behavior. Every young person can do that. And now they are even more connected, north and south, east and west, and they have to work together, because if they don't, they have no future left.
Thank you so much. And I think those words, it's time for action, is really what it's all about now. Thank you so much for keep on fighting. You have a few days more to go.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. And I think we need to replicate Greta like 1,000 times in every country. There are people like Greta in different countries, but nobody gets the media attention, sadly. She's lucky to be in Sweden, but I'm sure there is someone like Greta in many African countries or Latin America or Asia, but I wish they get the same profile and things would change. The media has a major role to play, you know? So I think we need to profile these young people from developing countries that are unspoken heroes and champions in their villages, in the communities. They need to be taken up, pulled up in the spotlight so they can get the power to do more